Snow drifts like ash across a nameless mountain. The camera lingers on an old photograph, 9 young hikers, bundled in coats, laughing into the frozen air. Their cheeks are flushed, their eyes bright with the kind of hope only youth can carry. Voice, soft and distant, they were just students chasing the kind of adventure only youth believes in. The wind deepens, no longer a whisper but a breath against the microphone. Pages of a weathered journal flip open on their own, weather worsening. Spirits high. The ink trail stops mid-word. Cut to a tent half buried in snow, its fabric shredded, poles bent outward as if something had forced its way through. Footprints lead downhill, barefoot spreading apart, vanishing into the white silence. Voice lowers, steady. When rescuers arrived weeks later, they said the scene felt wrong, like time had frozen in fear. The camera closes in on a single booth, frozen mid-step, snow caked along its edge. A faint hum rises beneath the storm, distant, human, as if someone is still calling for help from the dark. Title fades in, slow and cold: the Dyatlov Pass Incident, 1959. 9 hikers entered the snow. None came back the same.
Hey, pass that around. It's getting cold.
The storm hadn't come yet. The mountain was calm, holding its breath beneath a pale moon. Around a small campfire, their laughter echoed through the cold, soft and bright against the endless snow. Someone strummed a cracked guitar, the sound thin but full of life. Another poured vodka into tin cups, raising them with a grin. They toasted to nothing in particular, to warmth, to courage, to pretending that the freezing night was just another adventure. Igor Dyatlov, their leader, leaned over a worn paper map spread on his knee. The firelight danced across his face as he traced their route with a gloved finger. "We'll reach the summit in 2 days," he said. The group cheered, their voices rising into the dark, breath turning to pale clouds that drifted and disappeared. They were engineers, students, dreamers, young men and women shaped by a country that demanded strength. But here, in the wilderness, they were simply human, cold, hungry, determined. Their journal that night recorded it plainly: "The cold bites, but we laugh louder." A girl tucked a small photo of her parents into her coat before lying down, pressing it close for warmth. Another crouched beside the fire, holding a small tape recorder near the flames, capturing the sound of crackling wood, proof that warmth had once existed. The fire burned low. The wind whispered across the ridge, carrying snow that shimmered like dust. Before sleep, they sang one more song, a quiet tune about home, about summer fields far away. The camera lingers on their faces, tired, peaceful, unaware. Voice softens, no one knew it would be their last. The final image freezes, their smiles fading as snow begins to fall heavier, the first hint of the storm to come. White drifts cover the camp like a slow, gentle goodbye. The morning came gray and soundless. The mountain felt different, colder, heavier, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The hikers rose one by one, their movements slow, mechanical. The fire from the night before had long died out, leaving only a thin column of smoke curling into the fog. They packed their gear in silence, frost clinging to their gloves. One of them stopped, turning toward the tree line below. "Did you hear that?" he asked quietly. No one replied. The forest stood motionless, not even the wind dared to move through it. As they climbed higher, the mist thickened, swallowing the trail until the world became white and endless. Their compass needle trembled, refusing to settle. The radio crackled with static, a faint whisper of sound, then went dead. Voice lowers in their last photos, their smiles had already changed. The snow hardened into shards beneath their boots. The wind came in bursts, sharp and unpredictable, slicing through layers of fabric and skin. Their tents bent and groaned under invisible hands. Inside, the light from a small lantern flickered across pale faces. Someone whispered, "We'll move at dawn." Another, their handwriting tight and hurried, recorded the words in the logbook, "We are now on the slope." A sudden gust struck the tent, the canvas snapping like breath against the dark. For a moment, the mountain seemed to exhale, a low, distant hum rolling through the snow. Outside, the storm gathered strength, pressing against the thin walls that separated them from what waited beyond. The final entry came hours later: "Everything is fine." Voice, softer now, almost trembling, but if you look close, even the handwriting looks scared. The screen fades to black. A single heartbeat echoes beneath the wind, slow, uncertain, and then gone. The rescue team reached the pass 20 days later. Snow fell sideways, thick and relentless, blurring the horizon into white nothingness. The wind howled so loudly that orders had to be shouted into ears. A man near the front raised his hand. "There, something in the drift," he yelled. The team rushed forward, shovels scraping frozen layers of ice until fabric appeared, a tent, half buried, its side torn open from the inside. Inside, they found boots neatly lined by the entrance. Food untouched, blankets folded, cameras still loaded with film. Journals open, pens dropped mid-word. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away except a set of barefoot ones, pressed deep into the snow. Voice uneven, quiet, they cut their way out. In the middle of the night, in a storm no one could stand in. A few meters away, one rescuer knelt beside a body, young, half-dressed, frozen mid-step. His arm was raised, as if to shield his eyes from a light no one could see. His skin had turned the color of the sky, pale blue, hard as glass. Further down, near a cedar tree, two more were found. A small fire had burned to ash beside them. Their hands were blackened, fingers split open from clawing at bark 15 feet high. They had tried to climb, to escape, or reach something above. The radio crackled faintly through the static. We found more down the ravine.
Never seen anything like
Four
this.
bodies together, half buried in snow and ice. A woman without eyes. Another missing her tongue. One's ribs caved inward but with no bruising, no sign of impact. The rescuer's glove shook as he wrote in his report. Voice falters, it made no sense. It still doesn't. They photographed everything, each frame fogged by breath, blurred by shaking hands. The cold distorted the images, as if the mountain itself refused to be remembered. Someone whispered, it's like they were running from something that wasn't there. Theories spread across Russia, an avalanche, a secret weapon test, radiation. None fit. A scientist's voice overlays the scene, the injuries were beyond human force. Flashback montage, the storm shrieking, tents collapsing, flashes of light cutting through the whiteout, shadows moving between the gusts. The wind becomes a scream, then a heartbeat, then a low metallic roar buried beneath it all. A rescuer dropped his lantern. The flame sputtered, hissed in the snow, and died. His voice cracked as he whispered, almost praying, forgive us for finding them. The storm rose again, devouring every sound, swallowing their words before they reached the air. The camera pans upward, 9 sleeping bags lay empty, their fabric shredded, fluttering in the wind like lungs gasping for air. Voice? Breaking, they called it, an unknown compelling force. But how do you name something that still breathes in the wind? Cut to black, only the storm remained. When the storm finally cleared, the mountain fell silent. The wind no longer screamed, it only whispered through the empty pass. The rescuers moved carefully, their boots sinking deep into the snow that had already begun to reclaim the bodies. No one spoke. The radios were turned off. Even the sound of their own breathing felt out of place, too loud against a silence that seemed alive. One man stopped and knelt beside a frozen hand jutting from the drift. The skin was pale, stretched tight, the fingers curled inward as if clinging to something that wasn't there. He brushed the frost away, but the hand did not loosen. It was as if it still remembered fear. Days later, a helicopter appeared above the ridge, its blades thudding through the thin air. One by one, stretchers were lifted into the white sky, disappearing into the same blankness that had swallowed the hikers. The horizon offered no direction, no edge, just endless gray. Back at camp, the final report was typed in silence. Each word struck the page like a confession. Cause of death, unknown compelling force. The phrase was supposed to explain everything, but instead, it felt like surrender. Voice cracks, they didn't just lose their lives. They lost their story. Their journals were collected in a small box, pages stiff with frost. Sentences ended abruptly, ink frozen mid-stroke, thoughts trapped between one breath and the next. Before leaving, one rescuer lit a match. The flame flared weakly, bending sideways under the cold wind, then vanished without smoke. The screen lingers on the mountain, the snow smooth, untouched, erasing every trace of what had happened. The past looks calm again, empty, eternal. For the first time, there is no music. Only the sound of air, steady, hollow, and almost human. "60 years later, the wind still moves through Dyatlov Pass the same way, slow, cold, and searching. The snow drifts across the ridgeline, whispering over the stones as if tracing the path they once took. A new generation of hikers stands where the 9 once stood, their breaths visible in the frozen air. They read the names carved into a simple wooden cross, its edges worn smooth by decades of storms. The snow hums faintly beneath their boots, a low vibration, as though the mountain still remembers. Voice softens, people still come here, not for answers, but for connection. Old black and white photographs fade onto the screen, smiling faces bundled in thick coats, arms around one another, laughter caught in mid-motion, youth frozen in time. One by one, the faces dissolve into the white background, the mountain reclaiming them once again. Igor Dyatlov, the narrator says quietly, 23 years old, a student, an engineer, a leader, believed in strength and friendship in the mountain. Another name appears, Ludmila Dubinina, 20. She carried a camera, not a weapon. She believed that light could be captured even in the cold. The violin begins, soft, almost hesitant. Not a sound of mourning, but of forgiveness. Maybe the mountain didn't take them. The voice continues gently. Maybe it only reminded us how fragile we are, how thin the line between courage and surrender truly is. Cut to the present day, a single hiker kneels at the site, the snow rising to his knees. He takes a red scarf from his pack and places it carefully in the snow beside the memorial. For a long moment, he just stands there, his breath mixing with the wind, before turning and walking away into the fog. In the end, the voice says, the silence spoke louder than any theory. A soft wind rises, faint echoes drift across the pass, laughter, footsteps, a distant strum of guitar. They fade, blending into the air as though the mountain is exhaling. Final line, almost whispered, it wasn't the mountain that killed them. It was fear, the kind that lives inside silence. Fade to black. Text appears dedicated to the 9 who never came home. The music fades. Only the wind remains. The screen stays dark for 5 long seconds, the kind of silence that asks you to remember.